Hey,
What's
what's
up,
up?
man? How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. You?
Pretty good, pretty good. Thanks for taking the time to do this.
Yeah, man, this will be fun.
Yeah, for sure.
I just finished. I'm doing like some baseline testing.
What type of baseline testing are you doing right now?
Oh man, the full like critical power spread. So today was 5 minutes all out, and then tomorrow will be the first time I've ever done like a blowout effort before a 20-minute test. So
Okay.
most of the time I just go ape it on
Interesting.
for a 20 minute and then like just take like 93% of it or something. Um,
And so what are you going to use this for? Most people are
so
like,
I'm switching coaches is the thing.
okay, so aside from the first comment that you made about a piece of equipment, can we use all this? Because this is actually going to be, I'm just really, so I don't know if you want to talk about that or not talk about
Yeah,
that.
no, of course. No,
Okay.
and it's like a amicable switch and like really positive, yeah, overall thing. But so I worked with Ben Day for 3 years.
Right.
Um, and so started with him at a cat two, got super fast. Like his whole like methodology of coaching is fantastic. And like basically you like have to be very accountable to like riding in the correct zones and stuff. Cause like if you can handle it, you're basically allowed to do it. And he'll just like let you ride yourself into the ground. And then when you do take a break or like, he says, hey, like chill out, you just have this huge like super compensation effect. And it was like
Yeah.
really good. But now I think I need somebody more like stateside and more available.
Okay.
Because so Ben works with Bike Exchange, super busy, like, knows all the cutting edge science, is like very in tune with the latest and greatest on everything. But dude, he's just like busy,
Hmm.
and he's got side projects where he's like in a leadership role. So like they take a lot of time.
Hmm.
Um, and so for me, like it, like I'm sure we'll get to it for like 2022 season. Like a lot of it was like the little things and like the gaps in like my understanding of how to handle travel or like specific days within a prep, between races or what I mean,
Hmm.
like the very like minutia was where I really like lost things this year, or like the
Mm.
timing of like when you have to like buckle down on diet, things like that.
Hmm.
You're a couple weeks off and you panic and it's like it just throws everything for a loop. So having somebody who just has a little bit more space for me to
Hmm.
just be like, hey, double checking, and then
Right.
say yes, no, hey, let's do this instead.
So who are you
Um,
switching to? Who's your new coach?
Ben Sharp. So
Okay.
yeah. So
Where's he out of?
right down the road. So he lives in Gun Barrel, and I live in
Okay.
Boulder. So
Cool.
yeah, and he's like still a beast racer, and so having the opportunity to ride or just do things where you can connect a little bit, and it doesn't
Hmm.
necessarily take time out of his coaching schedule.
Yeah.
Um, I think will be like really beneficial to me.
Well, I mean, I'm sure he's excited to have an athlete like you to coach. You're killing it. And so when
Thanks.
someone's really into it and obviously getting insane results, it's like, I'm sure he's like, yeah, this is awesome. This guy, I can go ride with this guy and like really dig into
Yeah,
to the little things. Like there's so many little things to racing. And that's what I hope people that are new to racing get out of some of these podcasts. It's not just the watts, and that was one thing. I mean, man, there's a million questions I would ask you, but one thing is like you race a ton. So I think
mm-hmm.
sometimes and one of the questions was, hey, how do you see yourself as a racer? Because sometimes when people are like, hey, I'm a TT specialist, I think they overdo the TT specialist, and that ends up hurting them by the time they get to their event because they're doing the same damn thing over and over again. And so I'm gonna let you talk about it, but I was like scrolling through Strava just before we get on this. And like, I've never actually, I'm trying to think of a podcast where with the event that I want to talk to you about. I'm like, oh, I wonder what
Mm-hmm.
he did the few weeks before. And there's some really interesting workouts. So we'll get into that. But one other thing. So I was trying to look up, like, I didn't get to listen to the podcast you did with Frank in February. So if I ask you something and it's kind of like you've already covered that, you can give a shorter answer and we can just revert to that podcast. So you don't have to tell the whole same story again.
Sure.
Um, I tried to scroll through it to see what was already in there, but yeah, I hate making people repeat stuff. So I didn't send you these. Let's start with a like couple quick rapid fire.
Yeah.
It's usually like one or two choices, and then we'll get into like the intro, who you are from your words, go through kind of like just a quick history of how you got into cycling. And then one of my questions was, hey, what are you doing as we roll into October? And maybe we can talk more about the testing and kind of go from there. Does that sound good to you?
Perfect. Let's do it.
Okay. So even my first question, what are you, a TT specialist? Are you a road racer? Are you a crit guy? How do you see yourself as a cyclist in terms of racing?
Yeah, I think I'm a long range breakaway specialist who is also just very committed to team success and like has kind of an eye for technology. So
cool. That's all you get. That's all you get.
Yeah.
Long ride that you prefer the most: 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, or other?
Ooh, 6 hours. Because when you get to 5, it's like you get a moment of reckoning and you figure out whether you've executed up to that point or not. And like, that's always, you feel it no matter what. Like, no matter how many 6-hour rides you do, you feel it. And I think it's cool.
I was just talking to an athlete and he was like, well, I'm doing 4 hours. It's like the same. It's almost the same as 6. I said, oh, my friend, 4 and 5 is very different. 5 and 6 is very different. 3 and 4 are kind of similar. Yeah. 6 is a big ride. Short, long, or medium taper?
Short.
Yeah. Okay. High or low socks?
High.
2 things. Obviously you have more, but 2 things that you need for a long ride.
Food and water.
Okay. Speed suit, or bibs and jersey?
Bibs and jersey.
What's your preferred tire width?
Right now, probably 28 because I race on gravel wheels.
Wax chain, wet lube, or something else?
Wax if it's like new out of the box. If I have to do it, then I use Rock and Roll Gold.
Okay. I think I actually can't remember the name of what I use, which is, I'm not a tech person. But a lot of people that talk about wax chains and they're like, well, actually, I don't use it all the time because it's a total pain in the ass. I'm like, you guys are trying to convince me to use it. Like, this is not my wheelhouse. Okay. Tubes or tubeless?
Tubeless.
In the gym or not worth it?
In the gym.
Cool. All year?
As much as I can. Yeah.
Cool. Group ride or solo smash?
Solo smash.
And then last 2, stage race or one-day race?
Parkour dependent.
Okay, let's open with that. What do you mean?
I'd say if it's a hard one day, then one day. But yeah, they're just different.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Who is Zach Gregg?
Well, I am a racer for Project Echelon. I do a lot of work with Project Echelon's veteran nonprofit wing, which is essentially how the team originated. So Eric Hill, the owner, partnered up with another Eric to provide endurance kind of coaching and support for veteran athletes. And through the collection of those sponsors was able to kind of start a club team. And so now we serve a tremendous amount of veterans. It's a huge, fulfilling, fun part of my life. And the race team wouldn't be the same without it. So in addition to that, I coach full-time with Fast Cat coaching. And and definitely like into the tech, into the physiology. I have masters in exercise physiology from Midwestern State. And I guess I'm defending 2-time national time trial champion. Yeah.
Badass, dude. That is, and we'll get into the watts, but silly long range watts, which plays well to also your breakaway artist motif. Yeah. So how did you get into cycling? How long have you been doing? I think, did you start racing in 2016? If I looked
I did.
Okay. And how did you end up on a bike and getting into racing?
So I played college lacrosse. So yeah, like played a bunch of sports as a kid. And so I transferred from Division II school to Division II school my senior year and ended up at Colorado Mesa. I was pretty beat up. So I was using a mountain bike to commute across campus because I had an ankle and a labrum tear. So it was like walking with a backpack was excruciating from kind of both ends, like weight bearing and having something on your shoulders. And I was actually approached by someone in my class. They're like, hey, a mountain bike, do you ride? And I was like, yeah, of course. And so she turned out to be like a fantastic rider and like was totally transformative and like taking me under her wing. And because I was like a total meathead and like crashed a lot, I was fun enough to like hang out with them, even though they were all like complete savages on bikes. So I caught the bug, got a bunch of surgeries done, immediately hired a cycling coach and lied to him and told him that I just liked riding the trainer all summer. And Yeah. So I like got a power meter. I did all this stuff because my brother-in-law raced cyclocross and downhill professionally. So he was like, oh, you need this, this, and this. You should get a coach, like if you want to train. And so, yeah, the whole summer of rehab, I just trained and did FTP and all kinds of crazy stuff on the trainer in the basement.
Just smash the trainer.
Yeah.
Dude, that's great. That's actually, I started with a trainer. Someone told me to get they're like, get a trainer. I'm like, what, a coach? Like, no, a thing so you can ride your bike in the basement. I mean, you're in Rochester. It's going to be really cold.
Yeah.
And someone said it was cork hadn't come out. It's coming like, we got to get these corks. I'm like, what the hell's a cork?
Yeah.
Like, I was also trying to find out what bike reg meant. They're like, just look on bike reg.
Yeah.
So fun to think back to that. So you're doing, as we roll into October, so are you doing this critical power testing for Ben Sharp just so he can get a sense of who you are power-wise, or is it what? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I think it's a couple different things, right? So when you start with a new coach, it's always like just a wave of information exchange.
Totally.
And so I actually have a history of riding way too hard when I get back into things, because I'm like very good at like planning and goals and like visualizing things, but I'm also just like very excitable. And so I think in his own way, this is a way to like actually figure out how hard I should be going right now. And then like when you actually have to do something with that information. And so I'm smart enough to like not ride myself into the ground if I've like done the testing. So it's cool. It's a little rough, like doing it the first, I guess I've been back riding for 6 days. So, it's a wake up call, but it's also just a matter of like, can you put your ego aside and just do the darn thing, which I think is cool.
Yeah, 100%. I think the biggest thing that I'm excited to hear about, and then we can get into more of the smaller training things, the month before the TT Nats win. So this is at the end of July. One thing that was really interesting, and I'll link to this if I remember, you had a podcast on the Fast Cat podcast with Patrick Welch and Liam Flanagan, and Patrick won the under 23 TT. Is that correct?
Yep.
And he had made a comment of, he also races a lot. And he was saying, I forget how the moderator asked it, but it was sort of like, hey, what are you doing the month before? And I think a lot of people would think that's when I'm in the wind tunnel. That's when I'm fiddling. And that's when I'm like this focused. And he's like, oh no, that was in December and January. Like all that stuff is done way before. And then, and I want to let you tell this, but just kind of as I think, a lot of athletes follow other athletes on Strava and try and pick details. If I look through you, I'm like, oh dude, this dude races a lot, which I already knew from like Instagram and things like that. You did make a comment that you had a TT bike block. You went home, which was to Roanoke, which is super cool. You like casually blasted a couple 20-minute efforts at 5.5 watts per kg. I want to hear about this. You said the title was like, I can't wait till these TT workouts are done. And it was something like a 15-minute 5 watt per kg, a bunch of 90-second, maybe really high VO2 max, even above that. And then it looked like some tempo finishers. And then you guys had pro nats. And then you went and just slayed and won the championship. So like, there's a lot going on there that I don't think many people would see that as a normal run up. So hearing it from you, you're rolling in through April. Maybe let's go 2 months back. Like, how are you preparing for this? This was one of your number one goals, wasn't it? It was pro nats, amateur nats, and let me let you take it from here. But that's kind of like how I saw it. And so correcting that was wrong, that was right. How did that all go down? I mean, such a huge goal and exciting, like that you pulled it off.
Yeah, totally. I think it's so on our team's front, like there is like a focus on time trialing, right? So, and we were able to pull it off this year. That the only time trial we didn't win was pro nats as a team, which is cool. And yeah, like you said.
And so when you say that as in any stage race and like any time trial you guys go to?
Yeah. Anything in the US.
That's so crazy, dude.
The only thing we didn't win was pro nats, and we got 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th at pro nats. So it's cool. Like there is like a level of information sharing that's like very high and like super important in time trialing, because we are like resource limited. So it is like, well, what's this guy wearing? What this guy doing? What does this position look like? And then the limited time that we do. So we did wind tunnel testing this year. But we had so many new guys that I didn't go. So
when did you guys do that? Is that in the winter?
Like February.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess it was right after team camp. So like the beginning of March.
Cool.
And so we had Valley of the Sun as first time trial. Everybody sharing pictures and talking about positions and things in the lead up to that. That's like a good baseline time trial. And then with the power and kind of the simplicity of the VOS course, we put in a best bike split, and it gives you like a CDA estimate. And just looking at pictures and kind of just overall execution, you can get an idea of like what things you should be working on, you know?
What would those examples be, like working on holding position, working on getting more like shoulder shrug, like those types of things? Or
yeah, position maintenance is something that I like say a lot and like really hammer home. So, you know, even talking about Patrick, like we're working on shrugging in the same way that we're working on like extending time to exhaustion at threshold. So like when you go out on your TT bike, the first time you try and shrug, you can probably do it for like 30 seconds before your neck really starts hurting. But at the end of it, like you end up, when you start suffering, like you would like relax into the position and like try and take that strain away, and you're not pulling yourself into it as much anymore. You're like sinking down as a way to almost relieve the tension through like your whole like fascial chain through your back, because it's just screaming at you, because you always want to sit up. And so that kind of thing, like you look at VOS and it's like, did my power decline near the end, or like was kind of crosswindy? Did I struggle in crosswinds because I wasn't like super closed and consistent in the position? Those kind of things. And it really does start in February with that. And you kind of carry it on, and you make small adjustments and things. And then by May, like you should be done with any kind of adjusting. But this year I was having trouble with like climbing power on the time trial bike. So like I was like a speed demon, you know. If it was like 35 miles an hour, I could put out pretty close to threshold and be totally fine. But as the speed decreased and there was like a bigger kind of like strength aspect to it, I was having trouble. So I got a bike fit like 3 weeks before Pro Nats, and they raised my saddle almost 2 centimeters. And so it was like go time to adapt to that new position in the build up to that. Yeah.
Wow. What made you decide to do that? Just because of the climbing, and you were like, something's off?
Yeah. So at Redlands, it was like I KO'd the downhill at like 4 watts a kilo. So I did the least amount of power and went 40 seconds faster on the downhill than anyone else. Jeez. And then when I turned around to try and like jam it, like I had nothing. I was kind of like blocked. And so so I got like 4th at Redlands, and I was like very, very into like not having that happen again. So it came down to like I was doing some intervals, and I just did, you know, like 2 of them on the flats and then 2 of them on the climbs, and the climb ones were just like suffer fests. And I was like, all right, we got to fix something.
Interesting. Can you put out what's the watts like on the TT bike versus a road bike? Similar?
I'd say probably 10 watts difference now. Before the bike fit, I couldn't even do VO2 max power on the TT bike for more than like maybe a minute.
Wow.
And then now, like, it's pretty close. Like those things you saw like before amateur nationals were pretty close to probably what I would do on a road bike.
Okay.
Because that was all in like shrug position, no like sitting up between efforts, like, you know. But that takes time, right? Like that takes years of like dialing in your position, and you basically just like ping pong between like super aero and comfortable until you find something that's like a little bit of both. And you can also do good power in. So yeah, it's like our eyeball wind tunnel has gotten way better over the years.
Sorry to cut you off. I think it's really important for people to hear that this takes years. People talk about like these changes and it's like a 3-month thing. And it's like, no, like someone gets a TT bike and they're upset that they're like, the watts might be different. And I'm like, well, your position's probably off. You're also probably not used to ride it, and you've never ridden this bike that often. And everybody wants it so fast. Years, people, years. I mean, this is not overnight success. So then May hits, and you're probably having a ton of races then, right? How does that?
Yeah.
Like May, June going and then into the big day.
Yeah. So we all went to Redlands. We won the overall, had great success there. Went to Tour de Gila and kind of had equally good success there. And then I wasn't on the Joe Martin roster until like 6 days beforehand. So it was like, hey man, we need you. And it's like, all right, let's go. And so, yeah, it was like, there was some space in there where I wasn't riding the TT bike very much. And then it was like, you have to get better on every front. So like I wasn't happy with my crit at Joe Martin. I didn't feel like I could help the team as much as I should have been. So I went to Memorial Day weekend in Iowa.
I saw this.
Yeah. And that was like incredible. Like just the hardest racing. Like for anybody on the pod who thinks like Speed Week is crazy, like Memorial Day weekend in Iowa is just as crazy.
Snake Alley. I'm scrolling through Strava. I'm like, what the hell is this dude doing in Iowa? Like, why? So now that explains it. Okay, so Joe Martin, Snake Alley, and then
straight to Roanoke, essentially. Yeah. I went to altitude for like 4 days, and then went to Virginia, and that's where it was like very, very focused TT bike stuff. Fortunately, like my parents lived 20 minutes away from the TT course, so I was able to get out on that a couple times.
Cool.
And then that's where the position maintenance stuff comes in, where you really have to ride every interval in the position that you're going to race in. Because if you can't calibrate like those efforts and like translate them into race efforts, then they're kind of useless. Then you're just doing the same thing as you'd be better off on a road bike at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like some of those, I think they were like, kind of over under style stuff. But I did them, on the course out and then on the course back. And so, it was cool. I mean, when you go out on that course, it's like slightly downhill, and it was essentially more watts than it did in the race. So you're going like fast. And if you're not like prepared for it, it can really kind of like beat you up a little bit.
Interesting. So are you thinking how, especially from like the physiological side, most of the stuff that you've done, I mean, you had say through like 3 weeks in Roanoke, are you just like checking the boxes? Hey, I'm good. I'm cranking 20-minute efforts. I'm doing some VO2 stuff to stay sharp. Like, the train, what do you think is the biggest, and correct me if I'm wrong, like you're not necessarily like training so much for the TT in 3 weeks, like you're making sure you're ready to go. But like, what do you think is the most important thing for your training of what your winning time was like 35 minutes? Is that how long?
I think so. Something like that.
So like for a big, massive 35-minute effort, what do you think is the most important thing before all of that?
Mm-hmm. Are you talking about like specific workouts?
Just like, so we know there's no like one secret workout, but tell us the secret workout. What do you think is most important? Like big long ride, like you become as aerobic as possible. Like, hey, I worked more VO2 max because, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
How did you see that?
Yeah, I think more over under style stuff. Because like, so there's like an entirely different like set of problems that you have to solve when you race on the East Coast in June and July. And those are like, how do I go as fast as possible without overheating? Like, what's my actual threshold when my core temperature is elevated and it's like hot and humid and there's no cooling? So like a lot of it is more about like calibrating to the environment. And then, I did a lot of sauna prep for those efforts also. Just because, I mean, in Knoxville last year, it was like 100 degrees at like 8 a.m. And so like you don't necessarily fear the heat, but you have to respect it and do everything you can to like prepare for it. So with that in mind, you can't do a full training schedule. Because basically what you're doing is you're sauning after you're riding and it impairs your recovery. So, you have to just kind of scale back a little bit. And maybe that's like a long range taper approach with heat acclimatization stuff involved in it.
How long are you sitting in the sauna for after you go for a 6-hour ride and then you sit in the sauna? Is that like a protocol you did?
Yeah, I mean, it would be like, I think I did like three weeks of 4 to 5 days a week. And then it would be like everything but the like most lengthy day of the week I would sauna. Okay. And then like no recovery day sauna. So
is that like a half an hour thing?
Yeah, 25 minutes to a half an hour.
And do you have a sauna or do you go to a gym or something?
I just went to a Globo gym. Yeah. Okay. And sat there with all the other sweaty dudes. And it sucks. I would way rather have my own sauna, but it's just like convenient to go there and do it.
Yeah. Wow. That's okay. That's cool. Tell me about these over-unders that you're doing. Anything specific?
Yeah.
Do you them? Do you?
So, I mean, essentially you're just like picking what you think your threshold is on the time trial bike. And then it's like sweet spot or, almost going by heart rate. If the effort doesn't make sense to you, especially like the first couple times you do it, where like you want to pick a number for the unders where you're actually seeing your heart rate decrease through the effort, or at least like find a new steady state. And then the overs are kind of in increasing duration. So you're like actually getting practice at clearing lactate throughout the entire effort. And then at the end is, the 5-minute blaster at the end at like threshold is just to like kind of make you hurt and get a good workout in. So yeah, I think it was like kind of three under, 2 over, and then it just added a minute to the over every time until you got to 20 minutes, I think. So it was like 3-2, 3-3, 3-4, 3-5. That it's not good math, but it's something like that.
Yeah. No, that's tough. And so the over, you're doing like, are you doing like
105%, 102%, 400 watts, whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I'm a sucker to ride at 400 watts because it's such like a clean number compared to like 395. That I'll just ride at that. If it says go a little bit above threshold, it doesn't matter.
Very cool, dude. I love it. So wait. So then you get in there and you're racing and I guess, where do we leave off? Like maybe like 3 weeks out. So you're at home, you had about 3 weeks.
Yeah. And then there's like these,
and it's just checking in and then you go rip it.
No. So there's the VO2 things that you saw were like something I've never done, until this year. So it was, I think it was 2 minutes at like 120% or essentially by feel. It's like with Ben Day, a lot of it is like, hey man, just be realistic on the day and get everything done kind of even paced. So it's probably like 440, 460, like 110, 115% of FTP for 2 minutes in the position, then 30 seconds off. And you repeat it 6 times in a block and 2 times per workout.
Yeah. You did a bonus one in there because I counted 13. So it was...
Oh, really?
Maybe let's miscount. Extra credit, damn it.
Yeah, and so it was like they're really hard, man. And like when you get towards the end of the session, all you want to do is stand up or like kind of come out of position and like take deep breath and those kind of things. And it's like it's like a mental battle in a lot of ways of like your legs can do it, but how bad are you willing to like have the rest of your body hurt? And I think they make a big difference.
And then why is that? Why do you think it makes a big difference?
It just goes back to the like position maintenance thing, because you're going to get to that point in a time trial where like everything hurts. And there's like, in the same way, like pro runners, you see like half of them, and it's usually the latter half of the pack, like their shoulders come up and there's a lot of tension through their whole body because they're trying to like force their way to the end of the effort. Whereas the front pack still look like they're not even trying. And like that relaxation under like significant load is something that they've trained over the course of years. And it's something, I mean, you even see it in time trialists, right? Where they buckle down and their position almost gets better as they suffer more. So yeah, there's obviously places to like take a little break and shake things out. But like when it's go time, like you can't even pick your head up, because it's so much disturbance and aero.
And I would think too, and I don't know if this is correct, but something that I try to remind myself of if I'm doing a VO2 max workout, I remember how much that sucks, so that if I'm doing a threshold workout, I'm like, okay, this is longer, but it's nowhere near as hard. And if you're doing nearly almost the same amount of time at a whole watt per kg higher, granted, it's split up a little bit, but like maybe on race day, there's that thing in the back of your mind, like, okay, this isn't that bad. I can freaking do this. And a little bit like pep talk and reassurance and whatever goes on in the brain. But I think the harder, as stupid as it sounds, the harder makes the less hard easier.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree.
So what do you, as a coach, and shout out to Frank, I was a fast cat athlete back in 2010, I want to say. Nice. And so we did a pod. Yeah. Tons of respect for Frank. I know you so Ben was your coach. You've got a new coach now. You are a coach. What do you get out of having a coach? You exercise phys. What's the whole why?
I'd say in basic terms, like having somebody to act as a sounding board, who is more experienced than I am, so that there's at least like eyes on my training, right? Because I think I definitely have two kind of personalities, like I have the coach and then I have the athlete. And the athlete in me sometimes is a little manic or like scatterbrained, right? Because, you know, you have to work and you have to like be organized in other parts of life, and then some things kind of suffer. So having somebody like who shares the vision of like where I'm going and what I should be doing and the timing of things and like all of that is really important to me. And because like as my own coach, I think I just ride myself into the ground, even like knowing that I shouldn't be. I just really, really love to train. So having somebody be like, no, man, it's October. Like, just shut up, take your 14 hours and like go, you know. I think it's like, it's big for me, you know, especially coming from another sport where it's always like, you know, every day was hard and like, it's just like on the grind or whatever, like that mentality like kind of carries over still. And I'm a big talker, right? Like I'm sure there's the same way where like you spend all day like talking about other people's goals and you're like genuinely interested in them. But then when it's like your turn, you're always like, oh yeah, man, it's going great. But then having the opportunity to like sit down and like open the book and be like, yeah, I like really want to do this, or I'm struggling with this. Like, what do you think? Yeah, those conversations are like super valuable to me.
100%. What do you mentioned like, hey, I'm going to do 14 hours and I want to ride 25 this week. What do you see in the big picture of a year of training, volume and intensity? Obviously, this is like a huge question, but you know, I was previously coached by Tom Bell, and one of the things that we joked about was he's a big volume guy, and I love to ride my bike. He's like, okay, one thing we need to watch on each other is I'm going to let you ride maybe a little bit more than you need to. But he was, there's an interesting paper. I don't know if you've ever seen Road to Gold. It's about Nordic skiers.
Okay.
I gotta do like a podcast on this or something, but Tom was big into it. And in order to, I won't spoil the paper, but it's basically you had to win, I think like an Olympic medal or more. And there was maybe like 14 athletes they followed. And how did they actually prepare? It's pretty interesting, but huge volume. In probably their months are different because they're Nordic skiing, but like our base season, are you big volume then and then shift more towards intensity for racing? Are you like, when will you pick up the volume if you're only going to do 14 hours now? Because it seems like you ride a lot. If I looked on Strava, you're at like 12,000 miles or something already. So how do you see we'll make it two questions. How do you see volume over the year? And then where does intensity come into play?
Yeah. I think I like doing the volume. And I think as long as I keep it at true like endurance pace, I can handle it really well. But kind of as that like breakaway rider and like TT guy, I did a lot of like kind of medium intensity stuff. So like extensive tempo. And that stuff makes you really tired. So basically like a lot of my training in the past has been kind of like 4-day blocks, since I'm, you know, like fortunate enough to have a really flexible schedule. And it just goes like you lift on day one, you do big gear work. The second day you do long tempo, and then you do an endurance ride. And so kind of in that flow, it ends up being like kind of 20-hour weeks and things like that. I might try something a little different this year and do a little bit more total riding volume with a little bit less total intensity. Because what'll happen is like my heart rate will get a little tamped down and I'll like be like, well, I'm still at 160 heart rate, and then just ride the tempo at like dum pace. And it just makes me really flat. So, but yeah, throughout a year, I think I aim for like 900 to 1,000 hours, and then like life happens and racing happens and travel happens, and you end up with somewhere around 850.
Cool. So it's interesting that your comment about long tempo, because I was, for myself, kind of getting into long tempo, and I know maybe, I don't know, there's a lot of good webinars out there, and like go longer. I want to say maybe 5 years ago was like super popular. I was like, I just got to go longer. And I was doing some like 2-hour intervals, and just what you said, I just started noticing I got really tired, which in the moment, it was 2 hours of tempo. It wasn't that bad, but it was like the accumulated when I looked back at 3 months, and all of a sudden it became race season. Like, I feel kind of flat. I think it's this long tempo, but you still do it. So is it just smaller doses of it? Or because it kind of like freaked me out from really long stuff. Like I don't really ever do anything more than 30 minutes. And I don't know. I always wonder, like, should I go back to it a little bit? Should I not? What do you think about it? Like,
Yeah. I always think like
some, right?
it's pacing and it's fueling more than it is actually like the execution of it. That's the like secret sauce. Everybody rides their tempo a little bit too hard and then they underfuel for the most part. So yeah, doing it at like the classic, like 80% heart rate max, is a good kind of baseline to do it, but that should be like the average or even the max heart rate you use. So it's almost like blocks of high endurance, at least in my opinion. And then from there, you can kind of progress to like tempo with bursts and things where like you are accumulating and clearing blood lactate. And that keeps you from overriding because basically you're like waiting for your heart rate to drop kind of below your average so that you can do the next burst.
I like those a lot. Those were a fast cat special during the winter. If we were stuck on the trainer, like maybe 2 months before race season, I was like, these are good. People like them too. I think it achieves a lot and, they don't even have to be that long, but okay. So would you say what would be your favorite workout? Just not one that you think is the best, one that you're just like, I love doing this.
I love long tempo. And I love riding it at almost sweet spot. And yeah, every year it feels like I work up to almost 3 hours unbroken. And it is just like a kg bomb and you're eating just like every 10 minutes. And like, it's just cool. It's a cool feeling. Like, because no one can, like, I'm really good at it. Like not many people want to even like try half of that distance, you know? And you just like, it's just,
and you said unbroken, just 3 hours a block. And how often do you do that?
That's usually like the final one or final two. So, but yeah, like 2x60 is like a pretty typical, like kind of December block of tempo.
Okay. And are you doing that a couple times a month?
Yeah, every 4 days.
Every 4 days. Holy crap. Okay. Dang, dude. Man, on the pedals.
I don't, it's one of those things like I don't recommend it, but I love it. I don't have athletes do that like quantity of tempo for the most part. Like it is based on kind of like what, you know, it's based on the data, right? Does their heart rate go crazy after 25 minutes or is it like straight as an arrow till 50, right? But yeah, personally, I just love it. I don't know. There's something sadistic about it, and you get so tired, and you have to eat so much, and it's just fun.
KJs, yeah, that is. I'm into that. Let's talk about the lifting. So if you're lifting once every 4, so if you do 4 days and then you just take one rest day and then 4 more.
So it's like the fourth day is a rest day, essentially.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so this year could be totally different, but that's what I've done the last 3 years.
So you're lifting every 4 days. Then what are you doing in the gym?
Kind of total body stuff, and you know the lifting doesn't really change a whole lot, other than just like general reps throughout the kind of progression of the season. So yeah, squats, some single leg work. Either that's like single leg press because it's like safe. Or like some Bulgarian split squats.
Yeah.
And then usually like a push and a pull motion for upper body. So pull-ups and like a row and like a shoulder press are all kind of fair game. And then some like TT specific core work, which I hate, but has made a big difference in just like general stability on the bike.
Okay. Do you find that beneficial also then? I mean, what core work are you doing? And I would even see that just for long road races, especially in the breakaway or being super aero. I started doing that. Have you seen the foundation video? It's like 10 years old.
Oh yeah. And there's a new one even.
There's a new one. I don't like the new one as much. I like the inward tilted feet a little bit. It like feels kind of weird when you go into the founder position. But it is like, I just joke, right foot forward, left foot back.
Yep.
So what's the core? What are the top 3 to 5 core for riding your bike?
Okay. I like a V up or a dead bug where it's kind of like alternating arm and leg motion. Cool. Some kind of like anti-rotation work. So, you know, if you use like a cable or a band that's attached to the wall and you basically hold your arm straight out in front of you with one leg forward, one leg back. And so it's like, so you're staying forward and then the pulling motion of whatever you're hanging on to is trying to like deviate you from the straight line forward. And so it's really good for all those kind of like deep core muscles that, you know, aren't really activated by like a plank or things like that. And then, yeah, I mean, I still do planks kind of in TT position or like a mountain climber, you know, you can use like a furniture mover under your feet, like the little plastic slips. And this is like a Victor Campanaire's one. And
oh,
you
really?
just do mountain climbers with your arms on a Bosu ball in TT position and your legs kind of alternate moving back and forward.
How long do you do that for?
I'm pretty soft. I don't know, like 30 seconds.
Okay. I was like picturing Zach Gregg doing this for like 30 minutes watching a TV show or something.
No. I'm not good at any of this stuff, but I do it and recognize like the importance of doing it.
Yeah. Core is, I think, underrated as much as it's talked about, and strength, just super, super underrated. I don't understand it. Hey, I'm going to get strong. I'm going to build more lean muscle and more power. Nah, it's not going to make me faster. I struggle with that. Let's talk about, I don't want to take up your whole afternoon here. Let's talk racing real quick. Just what's biggest goal for 2023?
Yeah, so this is a good one. I think in 2022, my goal was literally like win every time trial, help the team. And it's amicable, like, you know, everybody kind of understands it. But I'd like to get more specific this year as far as the stuff on the road that I'd like to do well in. So kind of hard one days, even within a stage race, would be really important to me. Sunset Loop is a great example. Seriously, like one of the most fantastic circuit races on a bike. It's super hard, super tactical. You know, you got to be good at everything to even like make the finishing group. So doing good there. And then really, you know, like hard one day stuff, or days where like people let me get in the break. So, you know, like one of the long road days at Joe Martin, I'm pretty resilient. My sprint doesn't really like go away. I just never get a chance to use it. So, yeah, having like individual success within like the team goals for 2023 will be a big addition to the main goal of winning every time trial. Like that. Yeah. I think that's even more like realistic this year, which sounds kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, there's just no excuse for me not to. Like we have the best equipment. Like I know the stuff. I'm totally cool doing the training. So yeah, that's probably the main goal. And it helps the team, right? Like if I'm doing it, I understand all the stuff. I can like pass it on to everybody else. And then, you know, you go 1 through 5 at a stage race and it's basically over for everybody else.
And shout out to Project Echelon. I've really enjoyed following you guys. I mean, it's just dominating at the races that you should dominate at, and then dominating at races that people are like, oh, damn, those dudes are here to play too. Okay. Yeah, killer 2022. It'll be exciting to see what you guys do next year. You made the comment of, you know, racing happens and things happen in life and you guys race a lot. You're traveling all over the place. Stephen Bassett had made a comment of creating a dojo on the road. And so what do you think keeps you together from, you know, it's a lot of athletes don't go and race 3 weekends out of the year. And that can just get crazy, especially when you guys are going all over the country and beyond. What helps you stay together so that when you're come to the line on race day, you feel ready?
Yeah, this is a good question. I think I like start with like a checklist and the things that like are important to me, I make sure to bring myself. So I have a peanut allergy, so I travel with like my own almond butter.
You're that dude on the airplane, damn it.
Yep. No, and thankfully it's not like anything serious. So
good.
But yeah, things like that. I think you really have to like kind of tear down like what your weekend looks like and what you like actually need. So that's, you know, guys are traveling with bags of protein because they're not sure if there's enough in the trailer, or, you know, we're really good about getting recovery meals from just like really creative places. And I think one of the unique things about Project Echelon is kind of in its like a founding, and like that we've all kind of grown as a group. Like we really, really enjoy being around each other. So it's not like I don't ever have to like get away from everybody else within the confines of like a race weekend. like the only thing I want to do is do well so that we can like hang out and everybody be in a good mood after the race. Like, and it's totally unique, right? Like I played other sports where that's not the case. And like, if you do well, people are pissed. So yeah, I mean, it's just like it's its own race environment. And I try and help other people understand like how valuable that is to like inner peace of when you're traveling together so many weeks out of the year.
So my next question, but I don't want to forget to ask you this one. I want to hear like, what are the 5 things that you bring that you have to bring? But I think that's really, there's going to be a ton of Cat 5s, 4s, and 3s that listen to this versus people that are at your level. And I actually made a little podcast about like, should you join a team? And I always get the question, well, which team should I join? I'm like, who do you ride with? Who do you like? Who do you want to hang out with? Do not join a team because you get free chamois butter and like a 20% discount. That will end poorly many times. It might not, but it very well could. So it's really good for people to hear that from you at that level of, I love my teammates. I want to hang out with them. And then I want to do well so that like everyone's stoked and we're going to wherever to eat. And there's just a good vibe. This has to be fun, even when you're winning national championships. Totally. Like it is. I love that you said that. It's just so important to hear. 5 things that you have to bring on the trip.
Man. Okay. So this is like a personal insight is like, I am so go with the flow that like, even on race morning, like I'll like, if there's no food, I'll just like ride somewhere and get food. So like, I'm that guy. So I think obviously like the laptop is big, to just work on. Gotta have my like plasticky slip-on cheapo Birks, for like before and after the race. Those are big. I don't know, man. Like, yeah, you're so flowing. Chill with a lot of this stuff that it's like, if it was like missing, I wouldn't have missed it.
Yeah. I think that's good. That suits.
I don't get hyped up before races. I don't like take a whole bunch of supplements. Like I'm like chill to a fault sometimes. Yeah. So I don't even think I have 5 things that like I have to have, like kit, helmet, like, just very, very simple.
Yeah. Okay. What do you
my almond butter?
There you go. What's is the mindset different at all of when you roll up to a 1-2 race versus when you're at a UCI Joe Martin race? And maybe, I mean, you guys are one of the best I mean, it's hard to say like you're not the big dogs on that level because you're not a pro team, but you're racing pretty damn well. So it's hard to even say that. But is there any different mindset, or you're just like, hey, I'm here to do my job and I'm pumped to race a whole peloton of really fast people versus at a 1-2 race, there's maybe 20 guys that can compete with you guys? Well, any different mindset and if there is, what's different about it, and how do you like get your head in the game?
I always think it's harder to win a 1-2 race than like go to the UCI race and like execute and like have success.
Interesting.
And it always comes down to like how other people perceive you. Where like at Joe Martin, we have the freedom to like execute our team plan. And at a 1-2 race, it's very much like everybody depends on you to dictate the entire race and not just like how your team kind of interacts. So it's cool. I think there's like probably an increased level of seriousness for us at UCI races and big like team goal kind of races, but it almost comes down to like how much time we spend with the plan and making sure that everybody's on board and able to execute like their job. We're like a 1-2 race. You're like, well, there's a hill in it, and like, let's just not chase each other down, And so, I think the seriousness obviously ratchets up, but I like that more, the more structure that you can get in like the pre-planning and things, the more you can learn from kind of the results. And that's always fun to do, like kind of a debrief and be like, man, like we actually did really well here and we need to like do this differently next time.
Do you get nervous or like anxious before races at all?
Not usually. Usually things that are like, if there's like a challenging, like a job that I have to do, sometimes I go a little nervous for it. But mainly like in crits and things that are like, that you can't exert like maximal force and just have that be the control over the whole race. But but yeah, I think like a lot of stuff, I just go out and execute. Especially,
Mhm.
I don't get nervous before time trials at all.
Yeah. I think I was actually thinking about that. You're probably like one of the first true TT people that I talk to. And I'm by no means TT person, but the one I was trying to get into them, they never felt as nerve wracking because it was just me. It was, I like riding a threshold. And I was like, I just need to get better at trying to be aero. And, you know, I don't know, it's just different vibe of the TT. I agree. It's a good discipline for sure. I wish it was more popular.
I know. Yeah, me too.
So man, we got maybe like 10 minutes left.
Okay.
Let's talk nutrition and equipment. And you mentioned like a lot of times people are underfueling for these long mega tempo. Don't try and ride with Gregg on those days.
No.
What I think this is like just people underfuel, period. What is some of the most important things for you about nutrition? You mentioned post race, like protein and recovery meals, or let's talk pre, during, and post.
Yeah. Okay. So I think in the build up to race season, it's very important to start paying attention to your like nutrition stuff when you start paying attention to your time trial stuff in January, and really have like a year-long periodization of like how many carbs you're able to consume and like what types of carbs. And so starting that early gives you time to really like slowly ramp up as kind of the workouts themselves get more difficult. And you just stay kind of one step ahead as far as how much you're consuming. So like during the long tempo efforts, I get up to like almost 140 grams of carbs an hour. And basically like you do it in those hour-long blocks so that if you get gut discomfort from it, you just have like a clearing time where you just roll easy, drink a bunch of water and like wait, reset, try it again. Because it's so important, you know, like even like I race at like 70 kilos, but you know, an hour at what I would consider like endurance pace is almost 1,000 calories.
Yeah.
So like if you get behind, it doesn't just affect like your ability to like perform on the day. I think it's like long-term glycogen depletion and even like relative energy deficiency is like so much more common than people really realize. And so basically what that is like your glycogen is depleted. And when your body receives fuel to like replenish that store, it goes first to your organs and like make sure that you can recover as like a functioning human being before it like allows you to adapt and recover as an athlete. So yeah, I'm big on like fueling the ride, even if it's like kind of a simple, straightforward endurance ride. Like I'm almost always at 60 grams of carbs an hour or more. And some days that doesn't leave me a whole lot of food for off the bike, but like, whatever, man, I'll like be in a surplus. It's fine. But yeah, like you can't underfuel the bike stuff because it just has an impact on the rest of your day.
100%. What are you eating during road races road races?
Yeah.
Are you eating at all in these time trials actually?
No. And I've never taken a drink in a time trial either. So sometimes I'll like bring a gel and put it like in the kind of nape of my skin suit. But only if there's like a definitive place to actually take it. And so, yeah, I mean, I'll take some stuff on the start line too. Like I'll take a gel on the start line with like a swig of water and just rinse your mouth out. But yeah, I don't know. I'm like too focused on other stuff. Even I've like brought gels and not taken them. So, but yeah, in a road race, I'd like a big breakfast and then probably about 90 grams of carbs an hour. And then, you know, if you're like trying to make the break and things like that, it's just chaos. Then you bump it up a little bit. And so what I always do is I have basically like 3 pockets. And I try and keep track of how many wrappers. And so there's like a little pocket manipulation action happening there. So like the 2 outside ones will usually be like gels and then the middle one will be solid food. And so I'll take the gel wrappers and put them in the middle, and then it'll kind of give me an idea of like how much I've already consumed. And you can kind of feel around in the middle pocket and be like, all right, well, there's 3 like solid things and 5 empty gels in here. So it's like, you can kind of do the math. But that keeps me honest, right? Like there's so many times where you're having so much fun trying to make the break and like riding super hard. And then you're like, you look down at your Garmin and it's like been 90 minutes and you've had one swig of water and like one gel, and you're like, all right, boys, like I'm out for like an hour. See ya. Like, and you just have to like, you can't. You have to stay on top of fueling like that. And then, yeah, so I think, but it all depends on how much you can handle too. So like for 5 straight hours, I can do 130 grams of carbs an hour with no gut issue, but that's not everybody. You know, Stephen Vogel, like a man after both of our own hearts, like can do some absurd amount, 160, 170, but he like needs to, because he's like tall in stature. He does a ton of watts. So yeah, it's one of those things that you start practicing now and see what you can handle. And then from that, you just keep pushing up against that number and you'll adapt in the same way that you adapt anything else.
I can't wait to see in 5 years what number we're talking about, because even Stephen Bass was hitting me up and is like, dude, what do you do? What do you do for drink mix these days? And so we started talking like, well, how many carbs are you doing per hour these days? He's like 150, definitely on race day. Sometimes hard training, 150. And it's just, yeah, I mean, crushing. And I always think there are some long rides where you go to the store and you buy the candy and you buy soda at like hour 5. And then I add things up. I'm like, wait, I'm definitely way higher than I would have if I just like mathed it out. So I think just our absorption rates, as we continue to eat more and more and we absorb more and more, it's going to get high. We're going to get freakishly carby. And then real quick, post race, you're flowing, but if you had the choice, what would you go for?
Man, I eat what I enjoy eating. So it's like a cereal with like a protein milk over the top of it. So like make a protein shake, pour it on top of your cereal, and it's like as decadent as anything, you know? And like we hound cereal. It's absurd. They like get mad at us. They're like, we're not buying you guys any more cereal. We're like, then give us the car keys. We're eating cereal. And then like 2 hours post is like, you know, a pile of rice and veggies and some chicken or whatever. But yeah, Tyler Stites is the serial killer. Like he eats Dino Bites, which is like an enriched Rice Krispie treat. Like
that's in Walmart, isn't it?
Yeah. Like,
I think that's Grant Kuntz's favorite. I've cut back on the cereal. Because I can't keep it to just like a post mega ride, and was a problem. And Chris Carlson, who's like OG, you know, do you know Chris? He just has won a ton of. He's like 50 something now. Has won a ton of Masters. He just won a Masters World Championship, I think. Nice. Still races some P1 stuff, but anyways, he saw me it might have been Joe Martin, and we were walking with cereal. He's like, dude, what are you eating? I'm like, cereal. There's like tons of carbs in this, and we have a lot of biking to do. He's like, what? So yeah, cereal. Maybe pre-race I'll get back into some, but equipment. This is probably right up your alley. We probably should have left more time for this. What's kind of unique about your time trial setup?
I'd say the thing that everybody like keys on is like the watch shop bars. They're like super expensive, but basically like they're not the end all to be all, and they didn't actually save me that much power like in themselves. So I think you have to like look critically at your bike and see what it needs to be more like speedy. So basically like those bars or any customized aero bars will save you like 2 watts in and of themselves. But for me on the Argon, it allowed me to completely like get a different position. The arm cup reach on my bike was super short. And so the like plates and things on the watch shop bars allowed me to get like 6 centimeters more reach out forward. And I have pretty long torso. So it was like the position it allowed me to be in was significantly faster as a result. So yeah, thinking about things like that, where it's not about like just throwing money and finding the fastest things like on paper. It's all about like how quick you can make your position and how sustainable your position is and everything from that, and then work backwards from there. So
let me ask you, so if I don't know anything about the wind tunnel really, if you are back in February and these new bars allowed you more reach, how are you able to deduce that? Are you on a jig of some sort there, or I would assume you're on your bike, and are you just like fudging, like leaning more forward, or like, how do you come up with that?
Yeah, it's a lot of like setting up a trainer in your basement and like measuring things out and kind of like figuring out what could be different or whatever. And seriously, it's like the eyeball wind tunnel gets you to like 85% of the way there. And then So yeah, hopefully this year I get to go back in the tunnel because I didn't go last year.
Cool.
But those are where you do either like complete breakdowns and like new positions and try them and see if they're more aerodynamic because it would be better power output. Or you're like figuring out hand positions and like testing socks and minutia. But kind of everything in between, if it like looks faster, it might be faster. And that's where, you know, then you go back to like, does it feel good? And so it's this constantly evolving process of like tweaking things. But yeah, I just knew like from looking at pictures of myself on the bike that like more total reach at the arm pad was like an important thing for me and like my like morphology.
Yeah, cool. What do you guys go to? You said it was after team camp. Do you go to a wind tunnel out west?
We went to A2 in Charlotte.
Oh, cool. Okay, I was actually gonna say like because I know Matt Zimmer went to school around here, and I'm in Blowing Rock, North Carolina. So
yeah, and I coached Elise McCrae. So
yeah. Okay, very, very right around the corner.
Yep.
So I guess to conclude it all, where are you trying to go with this? What's the long-term Zach Gregg goals?
Yeah, I think it's twofold, right? So the first thing is like continue to compete and improve and like push myself and have fun with it. And the other side of the coin is like by doing that, not only because it's my personal ambition, I also gain the experience that I can pass on to others, which is really important to me, right? Because to take somebody somewhere that you've never personally been takes like a considerable amount of like spitballing and like guesswork, where if you've been there and you've done it, not only is it easier for you to like perceive them there and them doing it, but you understand the pathway a little bit better. So, and they can also like trust you that, oh yeah, you know, like this guy knows time trials, like it makes sense for us to work together because that's like what I want to do. So yeah, a lot of it is about like making me a better coach, and continue to like fill that competitive like desire. But you know, I think I'm going to be on Project Echelon for as long as they're going to have me. If you know, like I want to win as many races with like my friends, and because it like means a lot to us, not because like I think that there's another team that's going to pay me and like that's going to be a better experience.
Man, that's awesome. I think Brendan Rim was just on. He had said, you know, I'm just trying to squeeze the most juice out of this as possible. And it's important. I mean, both of you guys saying that, it feels really good to hear because I'm 40 and I'm like, what the hell am I still doing like racing? I don't really love it. And I'm still finding ways to become a better coach. And I'm finding ways to be a better human. I'm like, well, I mean, it's not that bad. And just, it's really nice to hear other athletes just giving honest opinions of why you're cracking every workout and going after it. Last question, selfishly for the listeners, what do you think when you think back, maybe a couple things that have been a good piece of advice, whether it's something somebody told you, something you want to just pass on to others? Yeah, just some good parting words.
I always go back to like, you have to go slow to go fast, you know? And it's like, it's a thing that you can kind of carry over into in a lot of different facets of your life, that, you know, that you should be enjoying the entire process and it shouldn't be like crushing you year round, you know, because I think we live in an era of like instant gratification. And, you know, this sport is completely the opposite of that, where it's like, he who has most patience prospers most at the end of the year. Cause you know, if you just rush things and you're super tired all the time and you're just smashing your head against the wall, like you're going to be out of the sport. Like it's frustrating, but that's just how it is. Like it's so easy to burn out. Yeah. And I think like you just mentioned about like why we do this, like you have to love it. It can't be for a paycheck. It can't because, you know, you have the watts per kg to get on this team. Like it's like, because you love it and you want to continue to improve at it, that you continue doing it. So, you know, and if that's like, somebody's like, man, I don't love this, then good, go find something you love doing. Yeah. Cause like doing anything at like an elite or like pro level is freaking hard. And, you know, if you just hate it, then there's something better out there for you. So I always, you know, I had to like give up lacrosse like three months before the end of that season because I was just so beat up and so like tired and exhausted. And in the moment, it's like the worst thing to do. But you look back on it and it's like, man, I had like 6 more years of like quality, competitive, fulfilling experiences. Like my best friends all ride bikes. And it's because like in that moment I wasn't having fun and I was willing to like drop everything and just move on. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a grim way to end it, but like,
no, man, it's you know, there was a really talented guy. He's a Cat 1 racer and doing some big races. And one thing that he started to ramp up volume before we started working together last year. And he said to me, he's like, if I start doing like 20-hour weeks, am I going to be much better this year? And I was like, well, okay, I can't promise you that. I said, volume is a good thing, but think of this more for like down the road of you racing like 3, 4, 5 years. Like, yeah, the more you do year after year is going to be good. He's like, well, I might only be in this for like another year. And I was like, oh, well, that changes things. I mean, no, because it sounds like you're doing this to maybe be better in these races, but is this going to affect work and like your relationships? And do you really like doing this? Or are you just here to like get on the podium? And it was a really interesting conversation. The love was not there. And I think that's okay. But I think athletes should just be aware of that endurance sports, you got to want to do the training. It's got to be fun. You got to go want to ride your bike. And yeah, you've said, I really appreciate you coming on and doing this, man. You said a lot of, besides the nitpicky watt stuff, like just general how to enjoy cycling as a sport, because I think I wish more endurance sports were popular in the US. I think I would have been a much better teen, 20-year-old adult if I knew about these and was participating in them. There's like track, but at least in my world, like that was kind of it. It was all team sports. And so anything I missed? I try not to like read through the questions too much. Was there anything that I didn't hit on that you want to talk about?
No, I think we covered a lot of stuff.
Cool.
Yeah. And I would like to say like, yeah, like endurance sports are like so meaningful, and the structure and things that are associated with us riding our bikes are actually like fantastic for the veterans and people suffering with PTSD that we end up serving. And so, yeah, if there's any listeners or people that your listeners know that are interested in using endurance sports and they have like they currently serve in the military, like we're here to help them.
That's awesome.
And like, it's not just Project Echelon, like the race team, it is Project Echelon, the veteran community. And like, it's been like totally powerful for the people that we have served so far to have that structure and mentorship from the elite racers. And there's always like more capacity to serve more people. And there's always the desire from us to do that. So yeah, if anybody's listening, wants to learn more about Project Echelon, like that would be, that'd be huge. And we're definitely here for them.
What's the best way for them to reach out? Just through like Instagram? Is there a specific person? What's the best route?
Yeah. So the website, there's a contact form on there. And yeah, literally just name that you served, and we'll get back with you. Cool. And we have a lot of free swag. All of our industry sponsors for the race team are also sponsors for the veterans. So, you know, if you're hesitant, you're like, oh, you know, we get it all the time. That's like, oh, I serve, but I'm not like beat up. And it's like, man, we don't care. Like if all you want is the discounts, like you earned them. So take advantage.
There you go. For free stuff, discounts. Here we go.
Yep.
Zach, thank you, man. Appreciate you doing this. Hopefully we cross paths on the bike and maybe spring race or something. Who knows? I might be in a master's field though, so I'll wave to you guys. Take care, and we'll catch up soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. See you, man.